Make no mistake about it, even if it is just by a little, Smackdown, right now, is the better brand that WWE has as part of a main roster. It's a slightly better show than Monday Night Raw, and sometimes it does seem like that's because of the runtime. 2 hours is a lot more digestible than 3 in most cases, but it also has to do with the writing. Both rosters have great talent, but SmackDown seems has defined their formula of what they are trying to accomplish. They have clearly set boundaries between the main event and the mid-card level, and they are building towards developing their mid-card act. Last week we saw the Fatal 4-Way match in which Apollo Crews defended his Intercontinental Championship against Big E, Sami Zayn, and Kevin Owens. And the end result was Apollo Crews retaining with I hope WWE does not crap the bed on in terms of building him up. I'm talking about Aleister Black. He made an appearance, he cost Big E the match, and now it seems like we're heading down the Black versus Big E road. And frankly, unlike many of the fans on social media, I'm quite excited for this rivalry. First of all, the setup for this rivalry was perfect. They gave us a clear Fatal 4-Way bout that presented to us the current state of the mid-card on SmackDown on the Blue brand, and a superstar that could be elevated in the very near future to the main event. You have two very clear mid-card acts in that Fatal 4-Way, that being currently Sami Zayn and the current Intercontinental Champion Apollo Crews. It's hard for me to believe that in the next month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, these current incarnations of Sami Zayn and Apollo Crews would get anywhere near the main event and be able to challenge either Roman Reigns or possibly Cesaro or possibly Edge for the WWE Universal Championship. That's very clear to me. They're very clear mid-card acts. Then they added a very surprising mid-card addition to this match. A man who has been champion before, world champion before. I'm talking about Kevin Owens, former Universal Champion in his own right, but he hasn't been a part of the main event world title picture for the majority of his career. As a matter of fact, he's a multiple-time mid-card champion, and that's pretty much it. He challenged Roman Reigns late last year, earlier this year for the Universal title. He challenged WWE Champion, then WWE Champion Daniel Bryan in early 2019, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all the world title shots Kevin Owens has had since becoming Universal Champion, which is, not fair. He has worked, he is a character that deserves to be a part of the main event scene, but put him in a mid-card title match, and he brings credibility to it. And then you got Big E, a man that I believe this year needs to be world champion. More than Cesaro. More than anybody else on that SmackDown roster. Big E has all the tools, has all the charisma, has all the in-ring work to be a main eventer. So why are fans not boycotting? That's not the correct wording. They're pretty much rejecting the notion of having Aleister Black versus Big E happen right here, right now, at this current point in time. And the only answer I can come up with is that Aleister Black is returning from injury or from absence from WWE television. Big E is seen among most WWE fans the same way I see him, as a future main event star. So obviously fans don't want either of them to rack up losses in their upcoming months. They want them both to be built up. But here's the thing, if you're building them both up, that means that they are beating no-name stars, which means that by definition, those wins, those victories against no-name stars, or, yeah, that's a little bit insulting, lesser, that's equally insulting, okay, never mind, by getting those wins, they're both gaining some sort of momentum, but there's a very clear lack of interest in their matches and in their promos. It has to build to something. Facing him off against Big E and having them both elevate each other, both in character and in ring wise, which is something that NXT has done in the past. With Aleister Black himself, they paired him up with Velveteen Dream a few years ago. That elevated both of the stars, even in defeat. And I think WWE can and will do the same here for Black and Big E. And this to me is reminiscent to 1998. Back in the Attitude Era, you had two stars on the rise, Triple H and The Rock, and they both needed momentum. They both needed to be built up for the main event scene, because the main event scene needed new names. So what did they do? They paired them up. That fantastic ladder match at SummerSlam in 1998. The Rock went on to become WWE Champion later that year. 1 year after that, Triple H was a main eventer in his own right. Why can't the same be done here? Both Black and Big E are equally as talented, and they can elevate themselves. That's something fans don't seem to understand. You can be elevated even in defeat. That is a lost art in professional wrestling. If you don't believe me, ask Cesaro. See what happened to him at WrestleMania Backlash. He lost to Roman Reigns in the main event for the Universal Championship, but he put up one hell of a fight, and today on Smackdown, he's a much bigger threat. He's a bigger star, and people actually believe that he can one day, very soon, become world champion and dethrone the head of the table. That is the art in which we are in. That is sports entertainment at its best, at its finest. That is the whole point. So if you ask me, am I looking forward to Aleister Black versus Big E? Hell frickin' yeah. Give me their first match at Hell in a Cell. Give me their second match at Money in the Bank, and then blow up this feud in a major way at SummerSlam, and then just pick one of them to head to the main event scene after SummerSlam, and then keep building upon the other so that they can both be elevated to the main event scene and become world championship contenders by next year. That is professional wrestling. But again, those are just my thoughts. Those are just my predictions. That's just what I think about the current state of the Smackdown brand. We have to wait and see and find out later on tonight on Fox. See how this plays out. But again, I'm pretty much optimistic with what these two superstars can do in that ring. So tune in later on tonight to Fox to catch up on what goes down with the Intercontinental Championship, what kind of explanation Aleister Black gives to interfering in that match against Big E. So with that said, I've been Alexis Carrillo. It's Friday. Enjoy tonight. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And see you Monday, where we could be getting some big news, reported news, on New Japan Pro Wrestling and WWE possibly working together down the line. Who knows? I've been Alexis Carrillo. Have a great rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend. See you next time.